Michelle, welcome to the journey. First of all, where did your journey begin? Your heritage to Albury, because tell us about that. You went to school here?
Yeah, I went to school here in Albury. Originally from Sydney. My parents and I spent 3 years of my life in Sydney, so you can imagine I don't remember anything of that whatsoever. So I moved to Albury when I was 3 years old and grew up here just north of Albury and Tabletop, so we've got a bit of property out there. And I went to primary school first in Lavington at Holy Spirit. Probably know Holy Spirit out in Lavington. So I went there from kinder to year 12 and then went out to St. Paul's College in Walla Walla for high school.
Oh, that would have been so much fun.
It was really fun. I got to do the whole horse mastership, agriculture. Yeah. It was great. It was fun.
Now, it's very difficult to explain what you do, but I guess a bit of a tech guru, you're into esports, you're involved in hackathons, there's so much to cover. Can you try to sum it up in one sentence or two?
All right, cool. Yeah, I'll try. So I got three main things I do basically. One is running hackathons and innovation workshops for corporates. So helping corporates to innovate and stay ahead of the game and to be leaders in their field. As part of that, I work for GitHub, which is a big online code repository platform for building code. It's a massive company that's owned now by Microsoft, run out of the US. So I'm the community lead for APAC, so I get to cover all of Asia Pacific, which is really exciting. And then I do esports, as you mentioned. So I'm a bit involved in the emceeing and hosting, not just of esports, but of a lot of tech conferences and events. And the third and final thing, well, maybe not final thing, but the third main thing that I do is just start an electric scooter company, which is about to launch soon on Kickstarter. So yeah, very exciting stuff.
Got so many questions to ask, I don't know where to start. But esports, I mean, that's sort of video games on steroids, isn't it, in many ways? Most of us can remember growing up with video games. It seems so simple and humble, but wow, it's kicked on. Tell us about it.
Yeah. So esports, for those people who don't know exactly what it is, it's competitive video gaming at a professional level. So you've probably heard of, kids playing Mario Kart in the bedrooms and stuff. That's not really esports. That's just playing games. Just like you would, go to the gym is working out, and playing soccer on a field is sport, but being a professional is something slightly different. So esports refers to that professional level of video gaming competitively. It's really, really exciting. It's something that's growing massively, especially in Australia. It's already a big global phenomenon. So if we look at biggest places in the world, it is South Korea is the biggest for esports. So they celebrate their esports, and they call them athletes. They celebrate their esports athletes like we would celebrate our footy stars here in Australia, which is crazy. For a bit of context, the biggest esport tournament in the world run every year has a $25.3 million prize pool. So
wow.
It's nothing to really laugh about.
I know, it's incredible. And even some of our Aussie mainstream sports are getting into it. I mean, the supercars,
yep.
plus Formula One,
yep.
they take it quite seriously too.
Yeah, so I'm across all the motorsport esports, which is really exciting. So our supercars series has an esports series that corresponds with it. And even as you mentioned, the Formula One. So every single Formula One team, apart from Ferrari, has a corresponding esports team. So like they have their drivers for Formula One, Valtteri Bottas and Lewis Hamilton for Mercedes, they also have two esport drivers who drive in simulation races, which is pretty exciting. That's a different one. It's kind of interesting, the esport and motorsport, because they have like a real world equivalent, so a lot of the skills transfer, which is interesting. But then if you look at something like the AFL has esports teams too. So Essendon and Adelaide Crows both have League of Legends teams, which are like these war kind of strategy games, which is completely different to AFL, right? But that they have those teams because they see it as a strategic move to capture a new market that they currently don't have access to.
You're also known as Melbourne's hackathon queen. These hackathons, they sound like lots of fun.
Oh, they're so much fun. So the hackathons, for people who don't know what they are basically big innovation competitions where you put a whole lot of different people in a room together. You pose a problem or a challenge or a theme statement for people to think about, and then they come up with creative ideas and solutions as a group together, usually in less than 24 hours. So it's pretty exciting. I've done ones for everything from the legal industry to med tech to the energy sector to the tech industry. Like, there's just so many different uses for a hackathon. It's really, really fun.
And you touched on with the scooter side of things, a little business there and an idea. Tell us a bit about that as well.
Yeah, so they haven't really come to Albury yet, but they've started popping into Melbourne and Brisbane and Sydney, these electric scooter rental type companies where you can go and rent an electric scooter, just like a kickstand scooter. You jump on, you can ride it to wherever you want to do. So we've created our own electric scooter. We're not really getting into the rental market. We saw there's a bit of a gap in the rental market, the scooter rental market, but also in a lot of the scooters that are currently on the market, there's a lot of limitations to them. So we decided to design and build our own electric scooter, and we've developed it in-house in Melbourne. And yeah, we're launching in a couple of weeks on Kickstarter to anyone and everyone. So if anyone wants to buy them, they can. They'll be online soon. It's pretty exciting. We got to do a soft launch at the Australian Grand Prix. So
I did see some of your social pics. I'm following you, Mish.
Oh, good. It's good to see some of this.
And I know we're talking about tech and it all sounds fun and all the rest of it, but on a serious note, you've actually a finalist in the Telstra Business Women's Awards. So that is really serious cred.
Yeah, it was very interesting. A lot of people asked, how did I get involved in that? Basically, someone nominated me and you have to fill out this giant long application that's ended up being about 10,000 words, so it's no small thing just to do the application. And then we found out there's different process. So first of all, you do the online application, then you have to do a 1 hour face-to-face interview with some previous winners and some judges who are on the board, and then you go on to the next stage, which is the state finals, and then all the different finals. So when we were at the state finals dinner, which I was a state finalist, which was really exciting, we found out that there was 5 sort of state finalists for each thing, and there was over 8,500 nominations. That's a lot of people nominating for an awards. It's pretty excited to be up there in that top percentage.
That's not bad for a young little 29-year-old.
Thanks.
You're obviously kicking goals in the technology world, and perhaps they're suggesting that it's not rare for a woman to be, because I'm sure there are more out there, but what's your experience been as a woman in technology?
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. It's changed a lot too since I sort of started. I mean, we're seeing a lot more things coming out about diversity and inclusion and equal pay and all these types of things popping up, and it is still a relatively big, I wouldn't say issue, but there's still a gap there in the tech sector. So there's about 23% of women in the tech industry, versus whatever that is, 76 men in the industry. And of that, I think only 2 or 3% are actually in leadership positions. And look, a lot of people go, well, what's the issue there? It's not like men and women are, different in a lot of ways. And I said, look, the issue isn't that, we should have women's empowerment and those sort of things, but the actual issues come back to you're not actually covering the whole market. Everyone who's in the tech sector, they're not just marketing to men, or they're not marketing to a certain sector, they're actually marketing to a lot of different people. And if you don't have women in certain industries, you're actually missing out on this whole other side of the market. Example, right? So when seatbelts were first invented, they crash tested them and all these types of things, and then they put them in cars, and they found there was a really, really high fatality, deaths of women and babies. Because when they were testing them, they were only using the people at work, which were all, 35 to 40-year-old males, and which have a, fundamentally different biological structure to women and children, and that wasn't thought about. Another example was Microsoft. When they first released the Microsoft Kinect, which is a video gaming system that can recognize you don't need a controller to use it. When they first released that, it didn't recognize women and children are Xbox's main target market. So it actually comes down to an economic function when you don't have equal numbers of men and women, because you're just not covering the basis of the market you're trying to target. So I think that's kind of what's happening, and it's changing a lot. There's a lot of, obviously the Telstra Business Women's Awards, it's been running for a while now, but there's a lot of women in tech groups popping up to not only support women that are in the industry, because I think once people start going, we need to start supporting the women in the industry, it's kind of a little bit too late at that stage. You kind of need to go back to high school, start getting the women there. So there's a lot of groups that are supporting STEM workshops and science and tech workshops in high schools, which is really exciting. I think that's what will filter through and filter out.
Was your experience growing up in Albury helpful for technology?
Definitely. It was really interesting. I was on a panel last night with some other amazing women talking about women leading tech businesses and startups and things like that. And another one of the women on the panel was a country girl as well. And she said, I never really experienced the whole men and women division thing until I moved to Melbourne. And I was like, oh, I'm the same. So I think, in the country, I just don't think we have these types of issues. I mean, one, we have a lot less people in the country to start off with. But her comment was that in the country, and I'm not sure this is 100% correct, but I can see a lot of parallels. In the country, women are a lot more resourceful. And I was like, that's actually quite an interesting...
They teach themselves how to fix things.
Well, in a way. So I went to St. Paul's College in Walla Walla, as I mentioned, and we had equal number of guys and girls in our horse mastership classes, our agricultural classes, our mathematics classes, our science class, like every class. I mean, partly we didn't have a lot of numbers, but there was equal numbers in all those sort of classes. So I didn't really experience this whole men and women type divide, if you want to call it, until I really got to Melbourne. I'm like, oh, okay.
You're only 29, but,
only 29.
but what do you think has been your greatest accomplishment so far?
Oh man, that's so hard. Well, I think this year sort of sums up a lot of the things, as you mentioned, Telstra Business Women's Award, but I also won the B2B Entrepreneur of the Year Award and the Social Media Influencer of the Year Award. So I've kind of won 3 awards so far this year. So I think that's fairly big achievement in a way, because I'm up against a lot of people, but also I think it's more about showing that you can be a role model for other people and showing and inspiring other people that they can achieve it too. If I can come from Albury and make it to Melbourne and, do all these amazing things, I think other people can. But going back to one of my biggest achievements that sort of helped pave the way for where I am now, it would probably have to be 2016 Microsoft Imagine Cup. So Microsoft each year runs this competition for university students, and it's a technology-based challenge, and anyone can enter, and you have to win your university final, then you have to win the state final, then you have to win your Australian final, then you have to win your regional final, and if you win that, then you can go to the World Cup, which was in Seattle, and we got there.
Wow.
So out of 34 teams globally, we were one of those teams, and we were the Australian representative, and that was an achievement that not only put a bigger perspective on the world and the startup ecosystem in the tech sector, but just showed me that there's just this whole other side around, and that, it gave me, a new perspective, and it, helped with my networking and gave me some great mentors and things. And I still, to this day, speak to most of those people that helped me get there. So that was probably what helped, I think.
That's terrific. You're very passionate about keeping people in Australia, telling them you don't have to go to Silicon Valley for startups, because often there's that, even lay people like ourselves have heard of Silicon Valley, and we're thinking, oh, that's where all the startup people go when they want to collaborate, but you have a different opinion on that.
Yeah, definitely. So I think, one of the things that I often advocate, you mentioned I'm very passionate about too, is we have so much talent here in Australia, and so much incredible talent. We have an amazing capacity for innovation and creativity here in Australia. And I think a lot of the people who either have that talent pool or are looking for that talent pool we need to go elsewhere. So if they're looking for that talent, they hire outside of Australia and bring them in. And if they are that talent, they go, oh, there's nothing for me here in Australia, I'm going to move overseas. So I think, by winning these awards and that, it just shows that we have this capacity and this creativity and this talent here, and that it can be celebrated and you can achieve great things. And one of the things with our scooter, as I mentioned, it's designed and built in Melbourne, and that's one of the things we want to play up, that that something can come from Australia. We've lost a lot of our manufacturing, but I don't think that was ever what we were really good at in Australia. What we're good at is designing great vehicles and innovating and prototyping and creating, and then getting someone else to actually build the final thing. So with our scooter, we really want to make it a Melbourne Australian story, so that when people see it on Kickstarter and overseas, they go, oh, that's that electric scooter that was built in Melbourne, or that's that electric scooter company from Australia, as opposed to another scooter company or another tech company from Silicon Valley. So there's just so much available here in Australia, and it's really growing in Melbourne. There's a lot of support, both locally, globally, or locally and federally, from the government and state level. I think it's really, really exciting.
What about bringing some of that to Albury-Wodonga?
Actually,
Maybe we could have a local hackathon or something. What are you thinking?
One of the things that Launch Vic and the federal government have been looking a lot into is innovating in rural areas. And I've said this to a few people who are in some of these rural areas, including my family who's here, and other people who run businesses. But there's a lot of money being poured into regional innovation. You can get regional innovation grants for co-working spaces, for activating different things. We've done road shows. Australia Post and The Village has done a regional road show. I'm speaking at an event next month in Geelong, which is also considered regional. So we're activating that whole area of Geelong that, they've, as I mentioned before, they've lost all their manufacturing, but there's all this awesome hub there of innovation, and all these people are coming together going, there's this stuff that we can use, and all these people coming together in this very innovative and creative vibe. And so I'm speaking at that event there, and Ballarat is growing. I mentioned esports, that's becoming a bit of a hub, a regional hub for esports, and so there's a lot of things going on regionally. And again, I was saying to some people earlier, something we're not very good at doing in Australia is celebrating our achievements, and not just our own, but the achievements of those around us. So I think if people shout a little bit louder and prouder, people talk about a lot, we've got tall poppy syndrome here in Australia, but if people shout a bit louder and prouder about their achievements, about what they've been able to accomplish, it doesn't show that they're ego or that they're better than everyone else. It shows that everyone has helped them get there. We have some amazing things in Australia, and other people can accomplish that too. And so I think that's what we need to continue to do, is to continue to tell those good stories, both regionally and in bigger cities like Melbourne and Sydney, and then tell those stories globally, because it's exciting.
It is exciting. Your journey really is only just beginning, but if you look back as a kid, did you picture that this is kind of what you might be up to? Or has technology changed so much?
A lot of people ask that, 10 years ago, did you think you'd be here? I'm like, I didn't think I'd be here like 2 years ago. And I remember, chatting to my parents when I was younger, and even when I just finished university, Mom and Dad, how am I ever going to get a job? I like too many things. Like, even as a kid growing up, I was, I played every different sport, and I liked different things. I liked the outdoors, but I also liked cooking, and I liked tech, but I also liked a bit of creativity in the arts, and I liked making things and building stuff, and I liked all these different things. I was like, there is never going to be a job for me. That's what I thought as a kid. There's never going to be anything. There's never actually going to be a place for me. And I even thought that even as I finished my my science degree. So I got a degree in science, the chemistry major, going, I like science, but it's not all I want to do. I like communicating and talking about it. So in a way, I've kind of had to make my own role that I can fit into. And I think what is actually changed a lot is that people are looking a lot more for people with diverse or interdisciplinary skill set that I have, and so that's changed a lot. And there's no way the jobs that me or most of my friends have now, there's no way these jobs were around 10 years ago, even 5 years ago. So if we're looking at the future of work, the jobs that are going to be around in 5 years' time have probably not even been thought of now. So.
And isn't that exciting though?
Oh, so exciting. It's, I mean, for some people it can be a bit of a scary prospect, and I can understand the unknown can be a little scary, but it's also exciting at the same time. So, yeah.
I love it. Mish Manners, we need to follow you. Tell us about your scooters, where we can find out about them, and how Miss Social Media Influencer, how we can track you down.
So scooters, you can find them at Enova Design, ENOVA, Design on Twitter and Instagram. Follow that for all the updates, Kickstarter links, discount codes, videos, everything. And then if you want to follow me, you can follow me, Mish Manners. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, if you want to follow me professionally as well. You can pretty much find me on any social media platform known to man except Snapchat. I'm not a Snapchat person. And
just quickly, how have you coped not checking for updates on your phone and on technology while we've been doing this interview?
I've got to watch. I can feel them coming through on it, but I'm sure I'll have a few after this interview's finished.
Oh, Mish Manners, thanks so much for joining us on the journey.
Look, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to come back to Albury and share my story with this region that's helped me to get to where I am. So thank you so much for having me.
We've only just scraped the surface of what you're going to achieve in life, I'm sure of it. But thanks, Michelle.
Thank you very much.